The importance of reinventing yourself can't be understated. From MF Doom to Childish Gambino, the ability to recreate oneself has proven crucial. As author Robert Greene wrote, "Don't accept the role society foists upon you. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image, rather than letting others define it for you." You can take this a step further by incorporating dramatic devices into your public gestures and actions, causing your character to seem larger than life. Today, we'll be taking a look at some of our favorite artists who have done just that. These are artists who brush past pigeonholes and evolve beyond preconceived expectations to fulfill their creative visions. Starting with the channel's fan favorite, we of course have Daniel Dumile, better known as MF Doom. As many of you know, before Dumile donned his iconic metal mask, he was known as Zev Love X in the crew KMD. Initially, KMD would be put on the map with Zev's appearance on the third bass track, The Gas Face. This feature would catapult Dumile's career as he was quickly picked up by A&R representative Dante Ross. Ross would link the crew up with his employers at Elektra Records, who would go on to sign the crew. KMD would garner recognition in the rap scene throughout the early 90s with their album Mr. Hood. The record was well received by both critics and casual listeners. Expectations for the group were hopeful after the release of Hood. Personally, I could easily have imagined them being mentioned alongside acts such as The Pharcyde, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, The Roots, and so on. But, as the story goes, shortly before the release of KMD's sophomore album, Onyx leaves the group for unknown reasons, Subrock is tragically and unfortunately killed by a car, and Elektra drops the group because of a controversial album cover. This is a concise telling of these events. If you'd like a full story, I covered it in this video. Following these events, a broken Dumile departs from the music industry. I wouldn't blame a casual observer of these events for having written Doom off at this point, but that would quickly prove to be a mistake.
Don't you feel stupid?
Doom would rise from his tragic backstory with a plan to take revenge on the music industry through his landmark revival album, Operation Doomsday, writing some of the best raps of the 90s, all while self-producing the entire record. Aside from reviving his career, this album would introduce us to many of Doom's creative techniques that would become staples across his discography, such as writing from the perspective of different characters, misdirections, and his use of samples for both skits and in normal songs.
Why don't you tell him about the time we faced Doom?
Alright!
The start of this new career would see Doom go on to work with Nike, Gorillaz, Adult Swim, New Era, Thom Yorke of Radiohead, and many other notable artists and brands. After going through such soul-crushing events, the average person would have likely called it quits and moved on. Dumile did not.
Follow your heart. Like, a lot of people might not see your vision yet. You know what I mean? People might call you crazy and think it won't make sense. Follow your heart and just follow it all the way through. And that's when you'll see you making new ground and people will appreciate it later on.
Rather than conceding to his awful circumstances, Zev would reinvent himself and become one of the most iconic and influential artists in music, fulfilling his and his late brother's dreams.
Everything is going according to plan, man.
If I had to say anybody, I'll say my man Kanye. He's doing his thing. That's a good friend of mine too.
While most people know Kanye West for his many controversies and his now iconic string of albums, what many people don't know is that Kanye was initially a very talented artist. Kanye's early artistic endeavors revolved around drawing and painting. Recognizing his artistic ambitions, Kanye's mother would enroll him in art classes at Chicago Hyde Park Art Academy at the age of 4 in order to nurture his creative inclinations. While attending high school, West created some pieces that would end up on the television series Antique Roadshow, where they were displayed and appraised for a lofty sum.
I would put on this largest piece here, 6,000 to 8,000. On this one, 2,000 to 3,000. On the small gouache that you have over there, 3,000 to 5,000. And on the double piece down here, you have 2 pieces matted in one, 5,000 to 7,000.
Wow.
So altogether, that would be, just for this grouping, 16,000 to 23,000 at auction.
That's awesome.
The artworks are currently owned by this guy. I don't know how to pronounce his name. After graduating high school, Kanye would receive a scholarship to attend the American Academy of Art in Chicago, pursuing a degree in fine arts. But this would all fall apart when Kanye was rejected from art school. Okay, in reality he transferred to study English literature in Chicago State University, where his mother Donda was a professor. This is where things would shift, however. At the age of 20, while still attending college, Kanye would create and sell a beat to local Chicago rapper Gravity for $8,000. He would again sell another beat to Jermaine Dupri, this time for $5,000.
Swear I've been baptized these 3 or 4 times, but in a land where niggas praise you cons and getting paid.
This taste of the music industry would inspire Kanye to pursue his dreams of becoming a musician. But in order to do so on a full-time basis, he would drop out of college, much to his mother's dismay. In reality, the signs were there all along. With nothing to lose and everything to gain, Kanye would shift into high gear, moving to New York City and focusing all his efforts into producing.
When he came to New York, he didn't want to do nothing but get a chain from Jacob and sit in the studio. That's all he wanted to do. He didn't care about chasing no girls, he didn't care about drinking, smoking, going to no clubs, none of that. All he wanted to do was get to the studio. So he called up at 10 in the morning wondering why we ain't there yet. I said, fam, I just left at 7, fam.
This is Derek Angelotti, aka D-Dot. Kanye's manager at the time put the two in contact, passing along a mix of 15 of Kanye's beats. Angelotti appreciated Kanye's style. It was similar to what his team was doing at the time, but different enough to add a little diversity to his music. With D-Dot's connections, Kanye was able to produce for the likes of Raekwon and Eminem, who Angelotti worked with under his persona of the Mad Rapper. This greatly helped in expanding Kanye's producer credits, further establishing him in the industry. The story gets a bit blurred here as sources begin to conflict, but as I understand it, Angelotti would put Kanye's team in contact with the now defunct Rockefeller Records. Kanye's management at the time would negotiate a contract where Kanye would become an in-house producer. Working at Rockefeller, Kanye had the opportunity to produce for various artists. But the most career-defining feature was his contribution to Jay-Z's The Blueprint. Jay, of course, being one of the most renowned rappers in the music industry, and The Blueprint being one of his most celebrated records. Aside from his producing talents, Kanye and Hove have great chemistry, and as a result, Ye would end up producing 5 tracks off The Blueprint. One of the best decisions of Kanye's career, as The Blueprint would go on to receive critical acclaim, debuting at number 1 in the Billboard 200, selling over 400,000 copies in its opening week alone. And this was all despite the album releasing on the same day as the September 11th terrorist attacks.
Good morning.
Kanye having produced 5 of the songs would result in him becoming one of the most in-demand producers in the industry. This is where the average person would stop, settling down for their cushy beat-making job. But not Kanye. Kanye wanted more than to just be behind the scenes producing hits for Alicia Keys and Ludacris. He wanted to be the rapper at the forefront. The team at Rockefeller, however, didn't want to lose their top-tier producer and would actively attempt to dissuade Ye, trying to convince him that he simply didn't have the background or what it took to be a rapper. Despite being discouraged by his own friends and associates, he began looking for a record deal. To avoid losing the talented producer to a rival label, Rockefeller gave in and reluctantly signed Kanye as a recording artist. From here, Ye would begin work on his debut album. However, before the album was fully completed, tragedy would strike, and Kanye would be involved in a gruesome car accident.
Rapper and music producer Kanye West, to him, crashed into a house near Diamond Head early this morning,
resulting in his jaw being wired shut, making it almost impossible for Kanye to verbalize his raps. Despite these impossible odds, 2 weeks after being admitted to the hospital, Kanye would go into the studio with his jaw still wired shut and record the now iconic track Through the Wire.
Because my shit was so swole, it was like almost like when Kanye Through the Wire, it was like I couldn't move my shit, so I was rapping like
The pain was well worth it, as The College Dropout would go on to become a hugely popular and influential album. The College Dropout was a massive success, selling almost 500,000 copies in its first week and debuting at number 2 on the Billboard 200. Thanks to Kanye's thoughtfully crafted debut album, he was able to prove to the world his skills as a lyricist and as a compelling storyteller, kicking off a phenomenal trilogy of albums, with my personal favorite Late Registration in 2005 and the fan favorite Graduation in 2007. Both of these albums would go on to be massive commercial and critical successes, managing to remain culturally relevant till this day. As we've learned, however, Kanye isn't exactly the type of person to settle into one lane, no matter how cushy and financially secure the position may be. And while Kanye would go on to release beloved project after beloved project, something was brewing behind the scenes. During his performance at the 2008 Grammys, some observant fans noticed Kanye's shoes. These shoes would go on to become one of the most expensive pair of sneakers ever sold, selling at auction for an immense $1.8 million. The sneakers in question were an early prototype of the Nike Air Yeezy 1s. The official release of these shoes symbolized Kanye's transformation as a fashion designer. Kanye had designed a pair of sneakers for Bathing Ape before this and a set of shoes for Louis Vuitton afterwards. But I think it's safe to say that Yeezys are undoubtedly Kanye's flagship shoe. The Air Yeezy 1s would release in 2009, retailing for $215 and selling out almost immediately. Kanye had also been working on his own clothing line, Pastel, which he worked on with various other designers.
I honestly don't even know what's happening here. First of all, where did you, what is this outfit? It looks like sort of a 60s beekeeper's outfit. What exactly is it?
Well, it's a warrior hoodie from my line from Pastel, which is, you know, it looks a bit more normal when you don't have it all the way zipped up. That's just an option in case you want to, like, rob someone or something.
The launch of the clothing brand, however, would be cancelled following one of his most infamous controversies.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Coming back to the sneakers, by 2013, West was having issues with Nike over royalties and creative control, airing out his grievances in multiple public appearances.
Now, this is one thing where the conversation changes when you have a child. Because oh, it's cool that they marginalized me. I asked them when the Yeezy Red October is coming out. I asked them, Kanye West asked Nike, when does it come out? They said, we're not sure yet.
What's the date of the Yeezy? That's what people want to know.
You know what Nike told me when I asked them?
What's that?
We're not sure.
And after months of circulating rumors, Adidas would officially announce their collaboration with Kanye in December of 2013, giving Ye a significantly fairer and more lenient deal, with royalties, full creative control, free reign over the product release date, and most importantly in my opinion, allowing West to retain 100% ownership over the Yeezy brand, which rightfully belongs to him. Following months of anticipation, in early 2015, Kanye and Adidas would debut their first collection of Yeezy products to a warm reception, setting the stage for Kanye's career as a fashion designer going forward. As what the future holds for Kanye, well, I guess only time will tell.
Keep your hoes in check.
In 2006, the world would have its first exposure to the creative we now know as Tyler, the Creator.
She want to know what I do on Logic, and that's okay. And then someone else asks me about clothes, like, that's okay. Only you let people define you. That, yeah, what? It's easy.
Thank you.
Y'all stressing me out.
Tyler would open up his first YouTube channel on June 25th, 2006, uploading the type of content that you'd expect to find on early YouTube.
Alright, Sharan, Cheyenne, hi. No, wait. Stop. We gotta tell our story.
A simpler time. Tyler probably also posted music on his MySpace, but having been so long ago, a lot of things have been deleted or simply lost to time. One thing that we could confirm for sure from this era is that even in his earliest stages, Tyler cherished the underappreciated importance of creativity. I've said it before, but the ability to leverage your creativity will greatly amplify your success in life. And Tyler the Creator is a phenomenal example, as it's this very mindset that would catapult his life forward. On Christmas of 2009, Tyler would drop his debut mixtape, Bastard. As was common for the time, the project would premiere on sites such as DatPiff and Live Mixtape. His debut would be met with a positive reception from critics as well as his small but growing fanbase. The tape would even land on Rolling Stone's top 200 hip-hop albums of all time. An impressive feat considering Tyler was only 18 at the time of the mixtape's release. It's even more stunning when considering that Bastard was entirely written and produced by Tyler himself. This immediately established him as a talented writer and producer, giving the audience a glimpse of the potential he had as a musician. But just like all the other artists on this list, to simply label Tyler as a musician would be an immense disservice to his artistry.
People just think I rap. Don't know I do a lot.
Just like Kanye, you could easily tack on fashion designer to Tyler's many accolades. But just like many of us, he had to start from humble beginnings. Before he had the financial resources to create whatever he wanted, Tyler had to start by ironing on designs onto t-shirts.
I've always been a figure it out type of guy. Even when I was a kid, I couldn't screen print t-shirts, so I went to Office Max and bought the iron-on stuff. And saved money up to buy the good ink. Yep. Printed those designs, ironed it on a few t-shirts, sold those, would do that to garner up enough money to actually get the first one screen printed. Wow. So like everything is figure outable. It just depends on if you have the energy to do that.
Luckily for Tyler, he wouldn't need to get used to ironing on designs for too long. With the meteoric success of his debut album and the growing profile of Odd Future, Tyler and the crew were able to open up the first Odd Future storefront, remaining as a permanent fixture in Los Angeles till the lease expired in 2014.
I make stupid shirts and people like it, so I'm grateful.
His fashion ambitions wouldn't end there. As his career developed, he would go on to collaborate with brands like Vans, Converse, Lacoste, and even Louis Vuitton. Recently, he also designed luggage for Globetrotter in colors reminiscent of his latest album, a collaboration that perfectly aligns with the themes of Call Me If You Get Lost. I also think it really goes to show his passion for fashion design. Tyler didn't just stop at sneakers or t-shirts. Once he had the financial means to do so, he even ventured into designing luggage. This idea is further exemplified with his latest project, Le Fleur. Aside from clothing, Tyler's going as far as creating perfumes and nail polish.
From a business standpoint, it's no profit, but I just wanted to see it exist and want people to be able to have it that are into that type of stuff.
And you gotta respect that his commitment to his artistic vision is so unwavering that he's even willing to take a financial loss for it.
Does it irritate you when people refer to you only as a rapper?
Yes.
Why?
I'm much more than that. I just like making stuff, and rhyming words together in a rhythm is just one of those things.
Coming back to the early 2010s, Odd Future would air the first episode of their sketch comedy series, Loiter Squad, premiering on March 25th of 2012 on Adult Swim, fitting in perfectly with the type of content the network was known for at the time. Loiter Squad also featured guest appearances from other notable artists such as Mac DeMarco, Lil Wayne, Mac Miller, Kanye, Freddie Gibbs, Uncle Al, among others. The show even featured special appearances from non-musical related artists like Tony Hawk, Seth Rogen, and even Johnny Knoxville of Jackass, a show which Loiter Squad drew heavily from. The show would run for 3 seasons over the course of 2 years till Tyler decided that the show had run its course. I don't actually have a source for this, I'm sort of just speculating here, as it's not like the show was failing, it sustained a massive viewership in the millions. I just assumed Tyler was ready to move on.
I was walking down the street, walked in a restaurant, and this guy stopped me and he said, "Oh, you're the guy from Ridiculousness." And I was like, yeah. And then people walking up like, "Your girlfriend looks like my mom." And I'm like, bro, I said that when I was like 12. Like, damn, they know that more than a lyric or this and that. And I love music too much, and I put that first in my real life. When I realized I wasn't seen as a musician or an artist or how I thought I was like, ooh, okay, let's hit the brakes real quick.
He did, however, in a 2015 interview, comment on the show's conclusion, saying this: "It opened the doors up for other things that my boys wanted to do. That was great, but we're off that." Pretty much confirming my speculation.
Tyler, Odd Future guys, you know, people who really do it themselves, like really do it themselves, who aren't just like, you know, like, yo, check out my YouTube page, this shit is crazy. Like, I mean, like, really, like, I made this album and I put it out and it's fucking something that you can't get somewhere else. And I did it on my own. And I'm not shoving it down your throat, I'm putting it out in the world because, like, I love doing it. Like, that's the real shit. Like, those guys really do that.
As for his musical evolution, I think Tyler explains it best.
It pushed me to push myself and do Cherry Bomb, because I was like, I want to be the best producer ever. I could do every genre. And when that came out, it was like, nah. And I was like, y'all think I can't write songs? Oh, okay, I'm gonna write pop songs. I gave him See You Again. I gave him Boredom. I gave him 911. Like, that's where that came from. And then it was like, oh, he playing it safe now. I'm like, oh, I'm playing it safe? Oh, y'all still playing with me? So then I did Igor. But then I was like, not only am I gonna go left, I'm gonna give these pop records that just think I can't. And then that's when I did Earthquake. And I told Lionel and my friend, I was like, this is gonna be my biggest song. If it's not, I'll give you my bank account and quit. It became my biggest song. And then I gave Nick Link. And then I said, New Magic Wand's my best song ever. They not gonna get it at first, but watch. People come to the shows to hear that song now. And then it was like, oh, bro, he was never good of a rapper anyway. That's why he had to pitch his voice and sing. Oh, really? Okay, gave a whole rap project. And then that won the rap Grammy.
Hey, how you guys doing? Come on, I want to talk.
Originally known on the internet as Filthy Frank, George Miller would amass a huge and loyal following on YouTube through his crude and dark humor content. This was YouTube at its peak of edginess, with creators testing the boundaries of what was acceptable on the site. Miller, not satisfied with one character, would expand his creative expression by creating other characters and in turn an entire universe revolving around Filthy Frank. One of these characters was the iconic Pink Guy, or Pink Omega, whatever you want to call him. Besides his position in Filthy Frank lore, Miller would utilize the Pink Guy persona to drop multiple albums. First with the self-titled Pink Guy, released in May of 2014, demonstrating an early taste of his musical capabilities. Kinda. While the music obviously doesn't take itself very seriously, it does show that from early on, Miller wasn't content with just one form of creative expression. This would then be further demonstrated on the slightly more refined Pink Season, released 3 years later on January 4th of 2017. The album debuted at number 2 on the iTunes charts, even beating out the La La Land soundtrack.
I find it relaxing.
It's not relaxing. It's not.
And can we take a moment to appreciate just how dope this cover is? He literally got a Mitsubishi 3000 GT, sprayed it pink, and even got a custom license plate for it. His tenure on YouTube would end in late 2017, but not before dipping his toes into the world of literature, authoring the book Francis of the Filth, a 256-page book tying up the universe he sought to leave behind. Say what you will about the quality of the story itself, you can't take away from the fact that Miller wrote and published the book. According to a 2002 survey funded by Jenkins Group, 81% of Americans feel they are capable of writing a book. But out of 1,000 people who begin writing a novel, only 30 go on to finish it. And out of those 30 people, only 6 will go on to see their novel published. A staggering 0.6% of our original 1,000. And even fewer will go on to have their work reach critical success.
Am I going to move on and, make bigger and better stuff, because that's really what it's all about. Like, I just want to push myself and test in all creative mediums, just how far I can go, how good of, content I could make.
Many of us know the story from here. 1 month after penning his novel, Miller, under his alias of Joji, would drop In Tongues, followed by his debut album Ballads 1, a little over a year later.
Filthy Frank, the most, how do you even describe
would become one of the most relevant pop artists.
He's really popping.
Yeah.
And good.
Yeah, it's been really cool to kind of see him go into a different creative avenue.
Joji's debut and every album since has broken into the top 5 of the Billboard 200, cementing Joji as a commercially respected musician and as an artist with a lack of creative limitations.
I would like people to acknowledge that I'm not stuck to one medium. I think it's important to want your favorite artist to explore more. Like Childish Gambino, like Donald Glover, what do you call him?
So why do you call yourself the son of Kanye, man?
Because I am. I can go where Kanye can't.
One of the more well-known cases of artistic versatility can be found in the multi-talented Donald Glover. Similar to Joji, before Glover reached his current level of celebrity, he started on this very platform, as part of the sketch comedy group Derek Comedy. Many of their videos went viral, even in the age of 240p resolution. In 2006, the group would release their infamous Bro Grape video, which remains their most viewed upload to this day. It was the same year that Glover landed his first writing role on the NBC sitcom 30 Rock.
This guy was a writer on 30 Rock, Donald Glover.
Despite looking back on the experience with fondness, Donald recalls many stressful moments. It was a diversity thing, Glover told GQ. It definitely didn't feel like I was supposed to be there. I used to have stress dreams every night where I was doing cartwheels on top of a New York skyscraper with the other writers watching me. As Inga Parkle of The Independent writes, during that time the network had introduced its diversity initiative, which allowed shows to add black writers to the writer's room without it affecting the budget. I think it's possible that incidents such as this are part of what have shaped Glover's unwillingness to remain in any particular lane. At his core, Donald Glover is a creative, and like any creative, he wants to be recognized for his talent, and not something as trivial as the pigment of his skin. While there were stressful moments, Glover ultimately was able to look back on the experience with joy and appreciation. As for his next role, it would put him on the map further than anything thus far, when Glover would appear on the show Community, embodying the character of Troy Barnes. His portrayal of the character resonated with viewers, garnering praise from both critics and casual viewers alike. His chemistry with Danny Putty, who portrayed the character of Abed, was often highlighted as one of the show's strong points. Glover managed to execute the role with charm and finesse. The portrayal of Troy Barnes captivated the show's audience. This would be made blatantly apparent when after 5 seasons, Glover would depart from the show, devastating fans and leaving a noticeable gap in the show's lineup, which only highlighted just how beloved the character had become.
I asked to leave because my heart really wasn't in it, and they thankfully just were like, yeah, and they let me go. I just don't want to have a job anymore. I don't want to have a boss. I don't want to do that anymore. Like I feel like, you know, if I stayed there, I'd be doing my life a disservice.
Even before Glover verbalized his thoughts directly in an interview, it was apparent he wanted to do more. Fans of his may have noticed that even while Community was airing, Glover performed multiple stand-up specials, with Comedy Central presents Donald Glover in March of 2010.
You like sneakers and you like rap music and you go, tell us which one you like. I was like, oh, you're hurting me, Steven, you know?
2 years later, Comedy Central would bring him back for an hour-long special titled Weirdo in February of 2012. His stand-up specials bolstered his profile and helped in rapidly increasing the size of his following. And while this certainly boosted his celebrity, it would pale in comparison to what Glover had been working on behind the scenes, which all started with a seed he planted all the way back in June of 2008.
Used to go hungry when I bought him new shoes. Now I'm like, food like MF Doom.
Throughout the 2000s, Glover would steadily release a string of mixtapes under his alias of Childish Gambino, beginning with Sick Boy in June of 2008. Followed by Poindexter in September of 2009. Gambino's musical ambitions really began to pick up steam in 2010, where he released I Am Just a Rapper and I Am Just a Rapper 2 in January and February respectively, followed by Cul-de-sac a few months later in July. Cul-de-sac featured some songs that I really enjoyed when I was growing up, such as I'm Alright, Put It In My Video, Do You Like, and I Beyond That. While I personally enjoy a handful of the tracks, some of the more critical listeners may argue that many of these songs haven't really aged that well, and I'd agree, but I think that's totally fine. None of these projects were meant to be Illmatic. They were more so stepping stones for Gambino's growth as a musician, so I can overlook them not being timeless classics. Regardless, the following year would be the biggest year for Childish Gambino's career yet, releasing his first official music video in February of 2011, giving us a taste before dropping his first EP less than a month later on March 8th. This project marks a pivotal point in Gambino's musical career, being the first time he and composer Ludwig's Swedish last name would work together, with the duo collaborating on every one of Gambino's future albums. Speaking of which, with his full-length album ready to drop, Glover would sign to Glassnote Records in September. Once everything was inked, Gambino would drop his debut album Camp, to a lukewarm reception.
This EP he dropped and the mixtape Cul-de-sac. And every step of the way, I have not been a fan. Kind of feeling a strong 2 to a light 3 on this. Really didn't like it at all.
When asked about the critics in a 2022 interview, Glover remarked, I like parts of that album, and I learned so much. Mostly that concepts don't outshine content, but when they're in equilibrium, it's extremely potent. I don't think I was clear on that album, and the songs weren't catchy enough for me. A mindset that he would clearly take on his next full-length album. But before we get there, it's worth mentioning that Gambino would drop one of his most iconic mixtapes in July of 2011, titled Royalty.
Can you turn on my headphones? Just a bit.
The tape featured some personal favorites like One Up featuring his brother, as well as They Don't Like Me with Chance the Rapper. Fast forward a little over a year, Gambino would be ready to release the now iconic Because the Internet, an album which Glover describes as the OK Computer of rap music. The record featured some of Gambino's best material to date. Tracks like 3005, Telegraph Ave, and Sweatpants would become some of Gambino's most popular songs at the time. The rollout for this album was a work of art in of itself. The extent of detail Glover put into this project was enough for me to dedicate an entire half-hour video discussing its various intricacies. Glover combined various forms of media coalescing his various talents. He did everything from playing up a character in interviews, appearing at parks at random to preview songs, hosting a hackathon, creating short films, designing a trailer for a Because the Internet video game, even creating a fake camgirl site. What other artist has done these things? Glover didn't just create a piece of music, he curated an entire experience, one which I haven't seen any other artist match since. Over the next couple of years, Glover would once again begin to branch out, landing some minor and supporting roles like on The Martian, which would go on to win several Golden Globe Awards. He would also put out Stone Mountain and Kauai in October of 2014, a joint mixtape and an EP meant to be considered one cohesive project. And in 2015, the music video for the leading single, Sober, would snatch MTV's Best Music Video Award. 2016 would be another landmark year for Glover, finally premiering Atlanta on FX. a show that fans had been anticipating for years up until that point. And with Glover as the show's executive producer, writer, and lead actor, he was able to further flex his multi-talented prowess. Later that year, Gambino would deliver fans a massive left turn with his most popular album yet, Awaken My Love. He'd feature as a small cameo in Spider-Man Homecoming, voice acting in The Lion King, Lando in the new Star Wars movies. I could go on about Glover's endeavors, but you get the point by now. Glover's reinventions have little to no bounds, and with a new album right around the corner, time will only tell what his creativity has in store for fans. One thing I found interesting about this set of artists is how they all mention each other at one point or another. But whether it's Kanye being told he couldn't be a fashion designer, MF Doom being written off as a failed artist, George Miller being confined to his role as a YouTuber, Donald Glover being told he couldn't be a rapper, or Tyler the Creator being told he couldn't be a Grammy awarded artist, one thing is for certain among these creatives: they refuse to allow other people to define them. They brush past what they were told and managed to achieve success that many of these critics could only dream of.
Thank you for your patronage.